Hi, this is Joseph Williams, son of John Williams, and you are watching the Nerf Herder Council.
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking Nerf herder!
You can't use that word! Only we can use that word!
You're tuned in to the Nerf Herder Council, your source for Star Wars opinion, conversation, and debate. Featuring your hosts, JT.
Stormtrooper armor deflects everything except Orback hooves. They're like a horse version of Thomas the Tank Engine.
AJ.
Yeah, Rebels is a lot like our show, where we think we have a good idea and then it just fails in execution.
On this episode of the Nerf Herder Council, we give our review of episodes 1 and 2 of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. And we also bitch a little bit about how the Acolyte got canceled because it's still a bunch of garbage. This is the Nerf Herder Council. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. I am your host, JT. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, both the channels of the Nerf Herder Council and also those of the Virtual Cantina Network. We are live at those locations every other Wednesday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are watching on YouTube, please don't forget to click that like button and the subscribe button and the notification bell, all that fun stuff, so that you are notified every time we go live. As always, we are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. If you would like to get customizable Nerf Herder Council swag, just go to shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. And if you would like to get some awesome Virtual Cantina Network swag, just go to tpublic.com/user/virtual-cantina. And tonight's show, guys, and all the programming on the Virtual Cantina Network is brought to you by Hyperspace Props, a proud sponsor of the Virtual Cantina Network. Without further ado, we bring on my best friend and my co-host. He is, of course, my brother, AJ. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How you doing tonight?
Shitty. I have a major ear infection on my right side. It just came on in the last day or so. So it's
geez, man.
I feel fine otherwise, but I can't hear a damn thing out of my right side, and it really hurts. So,
wait, you're saying that otherwise you feel fine?
Otherwise, funny you mention that. I was on an APG text thread just about 20 minutes ago. Yeah. So no, outside of an ear infection, things are good. So we had a good holiday. Need some tweaking there. We'll get it better. We'll tighten it down next year, as you know. Mm-hmm. And but everything's good. So how are you feeling with your new webcam?
I don't feel like it's really solving the problem I was looking for, but we'll keep working with it. It's fine.
All righty. All right. Well, in the meantime, speaking of webcams, we do have a third member of the hosting panel with us tonight. He was actually on the show back in July, I believe it was, and we were talking some Acolyte with him. He's a very good friend of mine, friend of show. Let's bring him back on. He is Mr. Matt Sherrick. What's up, man? How's it going?
What's up, fellas? Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So,
great to be back. What's up, man?
So right off the rip, I will Nick Hall loves the hate mailer reference. That's right, Nick. At least somebody got it besides us. There we go. So yeah, right off the rip, let's make this very clear. Sherrick, I think is I'm going to classify you as kind of like a Star Wars shill. Every time a show comes out, you never have a bad word to say. It's like, dude, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
I'm pretty sure that's more you, bud.
No. Because I've had complaints, and you're like, what? What are you talking about? This is amazing. So,
unless there's Purgle involved. If there's Purgle involved,
right,
John will absolutely shit on that.
Yes, 100%. 100%. So, Yeah, so this I don't know how you guys feel about this show. We'll get into like how you feel about it now that we've seen it, but I kind of want to start out with how you guys felt when this was announced, because when AJ and I were at Celebration and in the opening panel they were talking about, here's this new show they're going to be doing. It's Jude Law, and it's like 4 kids lost, and they got to find their way home or something. We kind of looked at each other and we're like, yeah, okay, okay, all right. Well, they've built up a lot of brownie points with us, so let's see what happens here. So I mean that's where I stood.
The most thrilling synopsis, is it?
Yeah, it's like I was very nervous about it. I was like, I'll watch it definitely because I've liked almost everything they've done, at least to a certain degree. But I was very nervous. I was like, is this going to be kind of like Resistance, where it's more for kids and it just does nothing for me? Is it going to be Rebels, which is not good? Or is it going to be amazing? Like I was just very nervous for it. Like, AJ, how did you feel when this was announced? I mean, we were there together, but.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was very unaffected. I'm like, all right, so it's a story in Star Wars. None of it sounded like it had any attachment to like any larger saga or anything. So I always have a hard time getting into those stories where it's just like, it's more Star Wars. It's utterly inconsequential Star Wars from the sounds of it, but it's Star Wars. Like, yeah, okay.
What about you, Sherrick? Like, what was your reaction?
It's left me a little cold.
I think for me, it was about who was attached, right? Because I was like, okay, kids in Star Wars, but you got John Watts heading it up. And to me, he killed it with the Spider-Man trilogy. And I'm like, who better to handle a Star Wars movie that has kids in it? Because I thought he did a great job with the Spider-Man trilogy. And I think I didn't really get as excited, though, until they kind of started saying Goonies in space. A little bit of, E.T. and stuff like that. Like, I was like, okay, now you're grabbing me even more, because that's where my childhood lived, was in that universe, those movies with all the wonder and just wanting to escape reality.
Okay,
I can see that. Yeah,
yeah,
that
makes a lot of sense.
I mean, those stories were made in the same era of the original trilogy, so they're not attached, but they're all part of the same. I hate this word, but zeitgeist. It just kind of takes you back to that same era. So the movie making style is somewhat similar enough that like to do a Star Wars in that style is perfectly all right. I feel like it plays into the tone of Star Wars because they were all made around the same time. You can always like tell a movie based on like its contemporaries, and they all kind of have that same. It's like music, everything around the same time has its own look and feel to it, or sound. So to take something like Star Wars that is like quintessential late 70s, early 80s, and then be like, we're going to do Star Wars, but in the style of something else that's also of that era. It's so easy to just fall right in step with that and be like, yeah, this all works.
Or you're just taking two things that already mesh well, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, and kind of throw them together and make one was great with Amblin and kids movies and aliens, and the other one was great with Star Wars. So you're just mashing them together, which I always wanted Steven Spielberg to make a Star Wars movie. You know what I mean? So I was like, this, even though it's not those guys, like these guys are inspired by them. So they kind of can take what they loved from both and make something their own.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's start there. I mean, Kale, he says in the chat, good to see you, by the way. Good to see you, Kale, as always. He says, if they're doing Goonies, then I'm not keen to watch Goonies. The start of this hooked me. Then I was kind of lost until the end of the second episode. Miranda Helmet, good to see you, Miranda. It says, I did enjoy this show because it reminded me of all the 80s movies I grew up watching and loving, yet it also plays to my son, current day. Yeah, I mean, starting there, I think that's a pretty good synopsis, and what you guys just mentioned, kind of mashing the Spielberg together with the Lucas. I think that was like my initial takeaway. 3/4 of the first episode. It was awesome watching E.T. or the first episode of Skeleton Crew. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the whole neighborhood with houses and lawns and all that kind of stuff, because I saw that in some of the pre-release stuff and I was like, what the hell is that? That's I don't know how I feel about that. But then when I watched it, I was like, you know what? I mean, and there's like some obvious ET stuff in there, when they're, after the ship takes off. By the way, there will be spoilers in this episode for those of you guys who've not watched the first 2 episodes. There are spoilers. Also, the views of the Nerf Herder Council don't necessarily reflect those of the Virtual Cantina Network, and there's probably going to be swearing in this episode. So, I always forget those disclaimers.
I love how you issue that warning. We're talking about a very kid-focused entry into the Star Wars franchise. Like, oh yeah, we're going to swear. There's going to be adult language on this show for kids.
It's us, man. I mean, what the heck, man? But yeah, I was kind of, I was like, okay, how am I going to feel? And, but then, again, it very ET feel. So I thought that was kind of cool. And again, after the starship takes off, you've got the two, the safety droids looking around in the woods, and they've even got the light blasting through the fern type of, I was like, holy crap. Like, for anybody who remembers ET, which hopefully is all of you, I was like, wow, man. Wow. That is just but I didn't mind it. I actually thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was kind of awesome to make it kind of blatant, So I'm kind of digging the feel of it.
Yeah. Do you guys have any ideas on why that is? Because usually something that overt, and from the trailers, JT, you and I had the same take. We're like, the veneer of Star Wars is so thin on this, it almost seems uninspired. And yet you just called out exactly what they were throwing in there as a reference, and we don't mind. So how is that? How is it that,
with the whole issue of how it looks, right? Like, we're not used to seeing suburbs in Star Wars.
Grass.
But I'll tell you what I like what they did with the story is they're kind of making it like this is a myth. Like, this world, nobody's been there. You know what I mean? They're like, we've heard of it, but it's probably not real. You know what I mean? Nobody can find it. And so it's like, it probably wouldn't look exactly like every other place we've seen in Star Wars, and then, they might have way more funds and access to these funds that no one else does. And that's why they're like, whoa, how do you have those credits?
Yeah.
So, they've got a whole different setup than the rest of the galaxy. And so it was a little weird at first, but I like where they're going with it. And, it's like, why wouldn't there be some kind of place in this vast galaxy that looks real similar to Earth? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I think AJ, you asked about, how can they get away with kind of let's just say what it is, kind of directly ripping off ET and making it pretty obvious. It's a good question, but I think ET is so, the word I hate, is so beloved that I think, hitting them in the member berries, as you love to say, I don't think is a bad thing in this case, because I don't think there's anybody that's seen ET that's not like, oh, I hate that. I hate that movie. They're all like, I love ET. And so if you kind of shoehorn it in there, and, you guys phrased it perfectly. When you're smashing Spielberg together with Lucas, it's like, it's a Reese's peanut butter cup. Like, you got your chocolate and your peanut butter. Yeah. How can you go wrong when they're combined? And, I think it's, in a way, it's almost kind of a really good way to set the show up, because you immediately get into the vibe of what you're going to be getting into. It's like, children are the main characters. It's going to have some emotion to it. And it's, so I thought it was actually a really good choice. And again, I know, I think the biggest critic of that would be you, AJ, because you're usually one that when you hate when they go heavy handed on fan service, But if you enjoyed it, then I think that proves that, it was a good move and it was a successful move.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the tone of the show is strangely, like, as much as we weren't thrilled with the pitch and the trailers, the show is exactly what was pitched and seen in the trailers. And yet it works. I don't know why the trailers didn't really hit us like we wanted to, but when the show actually comes on, you're like, oh, this is cool. Okay. I can get along with this. And I don't know what the difference is there, but yeah, we've already kind of given our general thoughts. I think it just plays very well for some reason. And it's kind of refreshing too, don't you think, guys? That, like, we haven't really had a show in this style yet on Disney Plus. So it's nice to see that it's something that still fits within Star Wars and feels like Star Wars, but also, one, isn't Skywalker based, and two, expands the universe a bit. We see other sides of the way life goes on in the Star Wars galaxy without it being attached explicitly to, like, the Jedi and the Sith and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
well,
completely.
Something I noticed, like, compared to a lot of what we've gotten as far as shows goes, is how cinematic and more towards old Star Wars or adult the action scenes were. Like, to me, like, when I'm watching the Pirates rating at the beginning of the first episode, I'm like, oh, this is legit. It looks great. It looks like I should be watching this at the movie theater.
Dude, that opening shot hooked me. I love.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to some comments here real quick. As always, here, talking about the swearing, of course. Discuss Metal Joe, our very good friend Joseph Randy says, I blame JT in general. Yes. He also says, I remember E.T. when it had guns in it. Very cool. Chastity Crawley, awesome to see you as always. She says, it is canon that E.T. is
Right.
part of the Star Wars universe. Yeah, is it? I mean, I don't think they ever came out and said it's actually E.T. It's just his race, I think. So
yeah.
Excuse me.
I mean, at the very most, there's only one of the three is E.T.
Yeah.
I don't know. His twin brothers or something.
His twin brothers. Miranda Helmick is bringing up the tattoo droid. That was pretty cool. I wish we could get tattoos done that quickly. That'd be kind of badass. So that was pretty tight. A tattoo droid that had a bunch of tattoos. That was kind of cool.
Did you see what the tattoo was that he was getting, by the way?
Okay. I was trying to, full disclosure, I fell asleep in the first 5 minutes last night. So I literally got done watching the first two episodes about 10 minutes before I jumped on. Well, no, I mean, it was late and I was working real late and just all kinds of busy. But so I just finished watching these episodes about 10 minutes before I jumped on the computer. So I was kind of I was like, oh, what is that? I didn't have time to rewind and kind of look. So what was that?
It's actually the Hutt cartel.
I knew it. Okay.
The same tattoo that Jabba has on his arm in Return of the Jedi. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wondered if that was it because it looked familiar to me because I'm still playing Outlaws, and it has the different symbols in there. So I was trying to. Yeah, I
never even knew Jabba had a tattoo until it showed up on the Lego figure. So once again, Lego educates you on the lore of the universe.
By the way, I want to say real quick, one of the things I'm liking about these new shows and people that have watched Star Wars all through the years is that a lot of people that watch the show that are new to it, right? Or that don't pinpoint everything that we see or we hear on other podcasts and stuff that point stuff out. They take things that we know are canon or that have been seen before, and we can be like, oh, they just brought that in. What? They're making that canon, or they're, still throwing that in there like it actually happened, where we know that and other people know that, but people that are new to it have no idea.
Yeah.
What was your biggest moment of that in these first two episodes, Sherrick?
I got to say, well, there was one that was hilarious that I actually forgot about until I watched it. But the main thing was Fuzzball from Captain EO.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I was a big Michael Jackson fan when I was a kid. And I forgot what it looked like, but as soon as I seen the trailer with him in it, I was like, that creature looks familiar. And then I was like, oh my God, it's from Captain EO. That's crazy, which was produced by George Lucas.
Mhm.
And so they threw him in there. And I'm hoping he's going to be in more of the show. That would be cool.
JT, what about you?
Like I said, I think it was just the ET kind of stuff. It was that, I think that just kind of grabbed me because I have such amazing memories of seeing that movie in the theater. In 1983, I was 7, and it was like I was bawling my eyes out, of course, as a kid. And it just reminded me of that, and it kind of got me into that headspace, which I think for me was a great place to start out. Especially because if I'm walking into it going, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this or not. You're kind of watching it because it's Star Wars, but then if I'm getting into that ET feel, I was like, oh, cool, man. Like, so I think that really was it for me. Because again, I think that's a great jumping off point, and it kind of sets the tone for me. So what about you?
For me, the one that I literally had to explain as it appeared on screen, I tried to shut up for the whole thing and just, just watch it. But I had to explain as soon as it came on, the acrobats from the holiday special being on the holotable.
Oh,
that was like, I cannot believe that they threw that in as a completely canonical reference. So it's official now. Like, the holiday special, canon, confirmed.
Yep.
He probably found out the release date was like, this is coming out around Christmas. Holiday special's going in there.
Also, yeah. Also, it seems like the planet kind of exists in its own like time locked sort of like bubble, which means that as nice as it was to like gift that to was it Itchy? I think in the holiday special, it was actually old as shit.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
they actually got like poor kid got like a hand-me-down entertainment system. Just old crap that nobody wanted. It was like a last second, like, oh shit, let's go to Goodwill. We'll pick him up something. It is life day after all.
I would just like to say that I'm really hoping for an appearance by Crappy and Discharge so that we can officially prove that Disney pays attention to the Nerf Herder Council. So if we get Crappy and Discharge in the show, we can champions pose for years. So, look at Kale. He says, I saw that come up and I immediately went stir whip stir. Oh my God. See, these are the sorts of things that I have to go back and look for, because as I've said so many times, the first time I'm watching this stuff, I'm basically just going, ooh, new Star Wars. So my eyes aren't darting all over the screen catching all the cool little Easter eggs and stuff. I didn't know the Captain EO one, admittedly. I was like, what is that? They're little like space pets or something. So but I mean, it's cool that they did that. So
I feel like especially that second episode, once they get to I'm not going to call it Tortuga. I don't know, the pirate.
Yeah.
Port Borga, I think. Was it Port Borga or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Port Victor Borga.
Those frames were so packed. Like everything in the background had to be.
I seen somebody pointed out that Hondo's ship is in there.
Oh, nice.
Kale, does that make Michael Jackson canon? No,
I think so.
You do not want you do not
Captain
want
EO's canon, not Michael Jackson.
Look, I don't care what it is. You don't want Michael Jackson canon in a show with the headline by kids. Okay, that's that. No, fuck that. No way, man. No way.
That's a good point.
So, all right.
Let's talk about the kids.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's talk about the kids. I mean, it's the main cast of the show, so
I think they all great actors. I think they did a good job.
Yeah, JT.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it. I mean, they're kids. It's you get what you get, and you kind of come to expect it. You're not going to get, Sir Laurence Olivier or whatever. You're not.
Yeah, but I don't think any of them were bad. I didn't feel like they were. They did their lines good. They did their reactions good. Their little comedy like hit. You know what I'm saying? Like for all being kids, and there wasn't one kid where I was like, that one ain't working for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they all did good, I thought.
I just kind of I think for me, I just expected it. I think I would have been more surprised if I was like, what the hell is that? Because I mean, it is a Star Wars show. So they're, they want it to be successful. They got to make sure that it's kind of believable, especially considering the fact that this is a show headlined by kids. There are probably a lot of fans out there like me who are like, okay, do I really want to see this? People of my age, like, do I want to see a bunch of kids running around? Am I just going to get, some kiddie show? So it had to be, the performances had to be of quality for it to not drag down, what you're seeing for people that might be skeptical. So, I would have been more surprised if it was kind of like, duh, what the hell is this?
I don't think it's a lock in a Star Wars production to have good child acting, though. I mean, you've got everything from, Kitster in episode 1 or Anakin in episode 1. I mean, again, Jake Lloyd was like 8 years old, so I'm cutting him a break. But, I wouldn't be putting that guy up for an Oscar based on that performance. But then you get stuff like, young Leia, and I think she did a great job too. So I don't know, maybe standards have raised in child acting over the years, but it's not a lock with kids of any age that you're going to get a good performance out of them. Especially when they're told to like just act like kids. Right. I mean, it's like being told to act normal. They are kids, but
who's your favorite?
If you were told to play with your action figures on camera and look natural doing it, do you think you could do it? Probably not.
Probably not.
Well,
yeah.
Who's your guys' favorites of the kids so far?
Oh, Neil, easily.
Yeah, I think Neil's kind of stealing the show just because he's the alien, but I could tell you that I think probably Fern might be next for me.
Yeah. Neil, like you said, Neil's got like a little leg up because he's the alien, but I think Fern is really nailing it so far. She seems like the Han, like the Han Solo of the kids.
She, honestly, if I had to rank them, she'd be number 4 for me.
Really?
Yeah.
She's deliberately kind of unlikable, but I think she's doing a good job.
Yeah, I was kind of like,
that's on purpose though. But like KB didn't really do a whole lot yet.
I like KB because she's kind of like Tick from Bad Batch. For those of you who have not seen her episodes, it's Tech, but we always have to say it in the Australia. It's Tick, Echo, Hunter, Rika, and Crosshair.
Right.
And Omega. So Cale McLeish. Speaking of Anakin, why the shit did he say wizard? That's one of those throwbacks, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was it in the? It was in the Robot Chicken. I'm bringing it back.
No, they keep dropping hints though that this planet is kind of lost in time a little bit.
Yeah,
like they might have been so isolated. So which means that Wizard was even old for when Anakin and Kitster were using it.
Yeah.
So who knows how long they had this barrier thing, See, this is the cool thing. We had a mystery in the last Star Wars show with the Acolyte, and it really wasn't a mystery and it wasn't that compelling. But already in this show, we're like, ooh, what's this barrier thing? And why has no one heard of their planet? Like, I don't know. The mystery's just presented better and it's more interesting in this one, I think.
Oh, it's like the lost city of Atlantis, Although, did you guys think what I think? I was like, at first when they said add, and I was like, is it that like a, verb? Like I'm going off road. Right. It's a Star Wars verse. Like I'm going adding. Like it's like what the hell? Like you couldn't come up with something.
Actually, it's pronounced AT-AT-N, but
this one would be AT-AT-10.
Are we all on the same page that Jude Law is Captain Silvo at the beginning?
Yeah, that's
what I thought.
Okay.
I thought that was kind of clear. To me, anyway, that's one thing that I thought right away. I was like, well, there's Jude Law. I mean,
Well, he said in an interview that he has many names throughout the show. So I think he's more than just 2 people. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think he's thrown some different names out there to keep people off his tail of who he really is. And probably by the end of the show. Yeah. By the end of the show, we're going to really find out who he is.
He has multiple personality disorder. They're introducing actual medical conditions.
It's Moon Knight in Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Yeah. Like, hey, there's Captain What's His Nuts. No, that's so-and-so. No, that's what? Huh? Who? No, he believe me, tomorrow he'll be frank.
I did really like his look though. His helmet and his the character was pretty dope. I liked it.
Between the helmet and the voice, was anyone else getting like Emphas Nest vibes off of him?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
I wonder if that was deliberate. Not as like an Easter egg or a connection, but just common language of, marauders that we've seen in previous Star Wars projects, just to kind of pre-inform the audience.
I think so. I mean, they do those sorts of tie-ins kind of frequently to kind of, but it kind of gets you into the vibe of the thing. You're like, oh yeah, I remember that from Solo or whatever. Like, and yep. Kale says Emphas Nest and a little bit of Boosh. Yeah, I would think so. I mean, that's kind of the way that I saw it.
Speaking of the intro, I like Kale's comment here. Are we on the same page that the start was literally the start of A New Hope, but pirates?
Yes. Very, very similar.
Jeff Caffrey, Skeleton Club. Yeah, I mean, Sherrick, explain that a little bit, because I got to think about that one. I don't know so much about
just the way certain people take their position, getting ready for them to board, and then the doors open up and people come rushing, and as soon as they come through the doorways, they're shooting. Just everything the way it was set up. I mean, it wasn't to a T, but it was very hey, let's do our version, but with pirates. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Also, how terrible are some of the shots on that freighter? These people get time to set up positions. They've got a full-size door to shoot at, and then fighting breaks out and they miss wide. How? You've got a 5-foot diameter target and you're 10 feet away and you can't hit them?
But they hit an eyeball.
Yeah, that they did. Yeah, I have to admit that kind of gave me pause. It gave me Rebels vibes of, I'm 3 feet from you, but I'm still missing. Are we gonna do this shit again? Seriously, that's what we have to do. Come on, there's got to be some better way to do that.
But we all loved it with the stormtroopers in Mandalorian when they couldn't hit shit when it was 2 feet away.
Dude, I got to be honest, Jeff Caffrey. Blame it on the weapons. I cannot do that, Jeff. I can't do it. Something about that will forever annoy the shit out of me. I don't know. The whole stormtroopers miss everything thing. I'm like, God damn it. It just drives me nuts. That's why I like the Death Troopers so much. It's all right, good. They're going to smoke fools.
Right.
That's what they're supposed to be. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see where you guys are going with the whole New Hope thing, but with pirates, because you start out with that, that battle or whatever, and then
basically
characters and they show up
the captain is Darth Vader, so
yeah. I mean, I could see that. I'm always wary of making that comparison though, because people tend to do that so often. With it's always well, this is exactly. I mean, granted, I'm guilty of it with episode 7 and episode 4, but in that case, I'm right, and everybody who disagrees is wrong. So that's a different story. But people are always oh.
Yeah, it's the John clause. As long as you're the one saying it, then it's right.
Only on that one, because I will never understand people denying that that's just a ripoff of A New Hope. But yeah, I'm always nervous to say that, because people do in current fandom, they have a tendency to kind of go, oh, well, this rips that off. I don't like it. It's this. They just rehash this. So, but I think I can see that. I think I can definitely see that. So, the question that I had for you guys was that pretty much, we've been hearing all about Goonies in the lead up to this, and Goonies in space. And I got to tell you, it really does have that feel, especially, it involves pirates, and, even the droid SM-33's got the peg leg going on like a pirate, and he's got, the Cockney accent and stuff like that. And
real quick, do you know about the whole Smee thing, right?
No.
SM-33. So
No.
I believe it's Peter Pan, Hooks, like right hand man, Smee.
Oh, really?
So they
Yeah,
took
yeah.
Smee
Hook's first
and
mate.
yeah, Hook's first mate. Smee is SM-33.
Just getting all the pirate stuff in there.
Is this where I admit that I've never seen Peter Pan or the movie Hook or
What?
like?
Dude, it's kind of a blind spot for me too, but oh well.
My wife
Can't
loves
watch
Hook.
everything, you know?
My wife.
Yeah, my wife. But yeah, I mean, like, no, I did not know that. So see again, they're cramming everything in here.
At least that's a little bit clever. I'm sorry. I've been watching Andor again because when is it not a good time to watch Andor? And the fact that droid was named B2 Emo, like, oh, geez.
Yeah,
At least this one's at least a little bit more clever than that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, so is the Goonies vibe is it bothering you guys? Because I think it is running a little closer to that than I thought it would. Right now, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I think it's kind of cool. But do you think you think it could turn out to be a little heavy-handed if it continues down this path?
I'm
It
starting to
depends on
think
if it forges its own path. Sorry, if it does just do like a beat for beat, we've already got the character archetypes. As long as that's as far as it goes, then I'm good with it. I think where it flips Goonies on its head is like, they were looking for this treasure in the Goonies, and I get that, but in this one, like you were talking about the lost city of Atlantis, now this kind of inverts that, where what if the people of Atlantis didn't realize that they were part of a lost city? Like, this planet does not realize that they're in a bubble and the galaxy has moved on, apparently. So I love that. I think they're already kind of subverting the stereotype a little bit. But Shark, I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
So, I mean, we've only got 2 episodes, right? But I feel like the whole Goonies and E.T. comparisons are really only when they're on their home world. So what I mean by that is, their home world is this mystery, right? And that's kind of how the treasure and everything was in Goonies, right? And the whole family aspect of when we're in ET. But when they're out in space and they're on this adventure with Jod, like, I don't really compare that to Goonies other than the adventure aspect of it. But when it comes to comparisons of the movies themselves, to me, that only really works on their home planet.
Yeah, plus Goonies had like 2 camps of kids. There were the older teens and then their younger siblings and friends. We don't have that age disparity here. Everyone seems to be basically the same age in this. So it's like just the kids and none of the teenagers are with them.
The other comparison they had was Stranger Things in space. And to me, this goes more along the lines of the first season of Stranger Things as of right now than really, and other than the look and the certain aspects of those movies, to me, it matches more up with Stranger Things season 1 with the whole mystery of the town and everything and the younger kids. I mean, but even Stranger Things had the older teens too, so I don't know. But what was Stranger Things but an homage to the exact movies that we've been talking about this whole time too? So it's still all fits in. Right.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think is going to be the whole deal with the barrier? Because at first I thought it was like an atmospheric thing, but then when, the starship goes through it, they're like, what are those things? Like, the kids had never seen stars.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, well, what is going on here? So, I mean, we have very limited information to work with, obviously, but what do you think that is? And where's it going?
They made the volume canon.
Oh, that's awesome.
They just built it around the whole planet.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's awesome.
That's what it seems like to me, though. Like a big projector. Like they're projecting the sky. They're blocking the stars. You know what I mean? And you see those red dots out there, like those are like reflectors, you know, like to block them. And I feel like it also blocks anybody from seeing them also. You know what I mean? Like it's like invisible. But I'm just like, well, if you do hyperspace, like, are you going to crash it? You know what I mean? Like, maybe that's what happened to the ship. You know what I mean? Maybe it was an accident that they hit there.
That is something I want to go back and review again from that first episode when the ship was taking off, because they said like, you're going to hit the barrier. So they're aware that there's a barrier there first, which is kind of a head scratcher that no one's like, well, what's beyond the barrier then? But then also it doesn't seem to affect them at all to pass through it. So I don't know if it's just like a big hologram.
See, that's originally I was like, does this have a dome around it? But as soon as they went through it, I was like, no, it has to be some kind of reflectors or something projected out there that you can just fly through, you know, which with the ship crashing on there, maybe that's what happened. They hyperspeed right into it. It was obviously upside down because it had to rotate.
Which was cool.
Took off. Yeah, which was super cool.
No, I like that idea of like, the planet was hidden. I don't know, maybe, like I said, it seems to go back centuries in Star Wars timeline based on like the mention of like the Republic. And it's not, well, even the mention of the Republic and not the New Republic means they're already at least one civil war out of date, if not two. And maybe even before that. So, it might have been that like basically this planet was forgotten or, hidden. Maybe they hid themselves away, from some sort of war back centuries ago. And then the memory of it was lost to time. And then, like you said, the ship was just hyperspacing along and then, oh shit, planet. That's where it is, Yeah.
And
as far back as the New Hope, Han Solo says, like, you've got to know where you're going and you got to calculate everything that's going to get in your way along that line. So if you don't know the planet is there, oops.
Right.
It was an inadvertent holdo maneuver.
Yeah, right.
Like, what the
That's
shit?
A tough ship, though. If that ship did holdo maneuver the planet and still held together, like, damn.
Honestly,
they don't make them like they used to.
Right. It's like a 76 LTD. Like,
right.
That was kind of weird to me too. So I'll be interested to see what the backstory is on that, because I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like, so the ship crashed or whatever. They couldn't get it out of there, but then these kids turn it back on and it's just, let's roll. Well, why wasn't it? Let's roll. Like,
plus I wonder what it was trying to head towards. Like it just jumped off into hyperspace. So it had something programmed in as a destination. Maybe it's a homing signal to its base, whatever. But
I do hope that we get like a flashback at some point, or would you rather not know how the ship made it there?
I think we'll get that through SM-33.
Yeah.
I don't think we need an actual flashback for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of would like to know. I mean, it's interesting, but I think it's going to have to be part of the plot. I mean, don't you? It's why is the ship there? I mean, this ship happens to be crash landed on a planet that no one thinks exists.
Well, but here's the thing.
So
SM-33 has never heard of At-Aten. So that was not their destination when they crashed.
What if At-Aten is like V'ger in the first Star Trek movie? They're like, what the F is V'ger? And then come to find out it's Voyager. What if At-Aten is something, something out like, I mean, see now I want to see the letters in Atlantis. I mean, it's close.
Right.
Yeah.
The naming of the planet is probably not a coincidence. The fact that it reminds you of Atlantis.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree with that. Yeah. So Jeff Caffrey says that the barrier is an inverted version of the sphere in Vegas.
Right.
He said it's like a giant cloaking device. That's what I thought. That's what I thought too.
What's interesting though is that they're still teaching things about the galaxy. Like the kids knew what stars were, for example. They weren't freaked out.
Planets and stars
and planets and all this. So so they're, on one hand, they're isolated, but on the other hand, they're still exposed to the concepts of the larger galaxy. Apparently, just nobody ever goes there or comes from there.
That was the one thing that threw me off, though, because I think it was, what's the main kid's name?
Wim.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you.
Wim's like,
I was about to call up the media guide so I could get the names right.
Wim's like, are those planets? And then Fern's like, no, they're stars. Or KB, one of the two, said they're stars.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does one of you know that they're stars and the other one thinks they're planets? Like, you're almost the same age. Like, you had to have been taught the same things. So I don't know. That kind of, I wasn't sure. I was like, why does one kid know what stars, look like and what the other one thinks they're planets?
Okay.
Yeah, this idea that they're taught about space and the fact that there's other things out there, and apparently seem unhappy about the fact that they're not out there doing more interesting stuff because they talk about how boring the planet is, and yet no one raises an eyebrow that no one ever goes to space. It seems a little odd, and so far though, I feel like unlike the Acolyte, anything that seems out of place is deliberate and not poor storytelling.
Man, I don't get all the hate for the Acolyte, but okay.
Well, I'll tell you. See, that's the thing, though, and I kind of touched on this the other night when I was texting you. It's not so much certain things story-wise or the look or whatever of Acolyte. When these kids go to a pirate like docking station, right? You see there's like thousands of pirates, aliens, and it all looks like all those people are really there. But then in Acolyte, they go to a town and there's like 10 people. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, this is a town, or a city. Like, there should be way more people, it should look lived in, like not just 10 people. But these guys go to a pirate port and it's like, there's 3 stories of this and you see pirates everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, it looks, when I said earlier, it looks cinematic. That's exactly what it looked like to me. It doesn't look like, we threw 10 people on this stage and we're surrounded by a digital screen to make it look big, but really it's not. You know what I mean? And you can see that a lot of times when they're on the volume. The backdrop makes it look huge, but you can tell there's 10 people there. You know what I mean?
The only giveaway that I've seen is the hilariously slow running. Like you could tell they're supposed to be running at a dead clip, but when you've only got like 30 feet, I got
another funny thing for you. Is it crazy that the kids' bikes on Skeleton Crew are faster than the Vespas in Boba Fett?
Oh, jeez. Wow.
The Vespas go like 10
We're just going to dunk on all the Disney Plus we don't like, apparently.
All right, I take it back. Sherrick's not a shill.
It's just certain things that crack me up, where I'm like, why are these kids' bikes way faster than adults' Vespas? It doesn't make sense.
Different time period. Different time period. We'll just chalk it up to that.
No, they're the same time period. This all takes place in Mando's verse.
Yep.
I thought they were saying that
this is all post 6.
Remember the pirate from Mandalorian season 3 is in Skeleton Crew. Thane.
Yeah, true. Okay. All right. Yeah. In terms of like the look of things, Chastity's calling you out. She says, I lived in a town that only had 1,120 people. There were more cows than people and more hayfields than people.
That's Lima.
Small. Yeah, exactly.
Miranda's got that beat. Her town was like 200 growing up.
See, with the pirate port, I didn't get cinematic. I got video game. But that's because, and again, this could be something deliberate, but that's exactly what the main kind of like spaceport, kind of shopping plaza hub of Outlaws looks like. It's like a multi-level thing that looks just like that, including them sitting down to eat and ordering weird food from a weird guy. Like, I mean, if for anybody who's played Outlaws, I'm sure they saw that right away. They're like, dude, this is totally like the main hub of Outlaws. So, and that's deliberate. Yeah. I mean, so I think that's what I got video game out of it. And so that's kind of what I saw.
It's probably a lot of like why in Kenobi we got the Fortress Inquisitorius, because people love that from Fallen Order. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, we can put that in, sure.
Yeah, no, totally. So yeah, I mean, and I mean, I know AJ, you always call out the volume, and Sherrick, you do too. I don't know the whole use of it in Acolyte. I didn't have a problem with it because it's like I don't think we need every damn Star Wars town to look like New York City. With like 8,000 people crammed asshole to elbow, it's just I don't think you need that. So if it's a little sparsely populated, I'm cool with that. So,
no, I agree. But even something like, and it's granted, it's new technology, so it's going to get better over time. And again, just like Clone Wars, one of the things, Clone Wars improved over time, not only just because technology improved, but also once you build a thing in CG, you have it for next time. So you don't have to build it all from scratch. You can pull from the library that you've been making. So maybe that's why it's looking better over time, because they don't have to waste so many production hours on creating everything new. They're like, oh, we've got buildings, we've got vehicles, we've got these aliens rendered already. So they can just throw those things in prefab and then worry about new stuff. But even comparing it to something like Dayu from Kenobi, like I thought Dayu was very unconvincing.
Yeah,
it was very clearly like I'm on an LCD screen set, and I just didn't get that from this show. I don't know why they're just using it better somehow, but it works better.
I noticed, in its defense, if I watch, let's say, Obi-Wan on my big screen TV, right? 4K bright TV. And then I go down in my theater room and I watch it on my faux 4K projector on a big screen, right? And it has a little bit of that graininess to it.
Are you just flexing on how great your house is right now?
No. But what I'm saying is there's a big difference in the look. You know what I mean? And it takes that like crispy, clean, too clean look and gives it that grainy texture. And then I'm like, okay, that's the way it should look. It looks a little more not fake, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's like when high def TVs first came out and everyone thought it looked like a soap opera.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, I'm also flexing. No, I'm just kidding.
AJ, cocky prick.
Yeah, right?
Great movie.
You win this round, Sherrick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting that you brought up Stranger Things, because now that I think about it, I guess I kind of do get that vibe off it, which is cool. I'm very interested to see where the story goes outside of just, okay, we got to get home. Because I mean, it seems like there's some bigger things there. With no one knows. They think Adin is a myth. So there's that. Like, what the hell's the barrier? Like we just talked about. So I'm very interested to see where the story goes, because I'm just getting a vibe off of this that it doesn't feel like it's just solely going to be, we got to go find this planet. Like let's get home. There'll be some additions to the Star Wars canon along the way. Like it kind of, I don't know. I kind of feel like there's something important that's going to come out of this. Something bigger than we might think. Whereas with like Boba Fett, it's like, Book of Boba Fett, we're like, okay, it's backstory of Boba Fett, cool. Mando is like its own little self-standing story. It's like, okay, cool. But that one we got the cloning thing, so you're tying it into, the whole Palpatine thing and all that, Plagueis, whatever. And this one, I can't imagine that it's going to be solely get these kids home story. I really feel like something bigger is going to come out of it. Because if you think about it, like these shows that they've done so far, they're all in the same universe and stuff, and we know eventually they're going to have to start smacking into each other and tying together. outside of just Book of Boba Fett having like a bunch of Mando episodes crammed in there, So I am really wondering if this is going to be the show where they finally like have this big, like, holy shit, like, to really kind of jumpstart what we're going to get in the next few years. So I'm very interested to see where this goes. Joe's friend says, what time frame is this series? It's in the Mandoverse, so it's after episode 6, and so it's right around there.
It's like, it's like within 10 years of episode 6, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think it's just like a nice, fun story of getting kids home, and we'll find out some little nuggets along the way, or do you think this is actually like kind of setting up something pretty major? Or in between, whatever.
I think, let's say that Jod is the captain at the beginning, right? So his whole thing at the beginning was, man, I know it was rough, guys, but I finally did it. We got you this money. We're good, right? And there was nothing, right? So if he is the same character, he's been locked up in jail and he needs redemption, right? He needs to get his life back. So what's the best way to do that? Oh, I overheard these kids say they're from Atten, which that's not, from what I know, that's a place with a lot of treasure, right? So how do I get my crew back? How do I get my ship back? How do I get the life that has been taken from me back? I let these kids take me to their homeworld, or I help them get home, right? So I think they're going to have that. But then, of course, I think over the course of the series, he's going to change, right? Maybe. And there's going to be some, change of heart with him. But I do still think we're going to learn more about Atten and its history. And there's going to be a lot more story there than what we're even anticipating right now. So it might be less about the kids getting home, and it might be more about what's their planet? Like, what's the backstory of this planet? And where do we go from here if people find out it's real?
Yeah. I think that's the big mystery is just, what is the story behind the planet? I really hope that they don't. I know they've got to lay the groundwork for this culminating movie. And as I understand it, The Mandalorian and Grogu is not that movie. They just decided to go back to theaters with season 4 of The Mandalorian instead of making another season of television. But it's not the Dave Filoni movie that's supposed to culminate Ahsoka and what would have been Rangers of the New Republic and Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. But I don't know. I'd be curious to know where you guys stand on this, but I think Mandalorian season 1, I think, might have been the strongest season because it was only concerned with telling its own story. And as they broadened the scope and started to tie in the larger Star Wars universe, I think it kind of diminished the storytelling of The Mandalorian itself at that point. So I hope that Skeleton Crew stays focused on its own story and these characters and the mystery of this planet just for this season. And especially because, thanks to the Acolyte being canceled, you can't bank on season 2. So if you're going to drop these Easter eggs, being like, we'll pay that off next season. Well, you can't count on that. So if they get a green light for a season 2 during the run, like if the ratings are there and they're like, all right, we know we're going to get a season 2, then maybe you throw a post credits thing at the end of the last episode or something to start laying that groundwork. But otherwise, I don't want to see a lot of connective tissue because there's no guarantee that it's going to pay off.
Right.
I hate that, man. I don't hate your thinking there. I just hate the fact that is now a reality that we have to consider. That a bunch of online dickheads can dictate the future of, something as major as Star Wars. That whole Acolyte cancellation just will never sit right with me. And like I said, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It's ridiculous. And so, I mean, I hope they're not writing things now being kind of gun shy of whether or not there's going to be, a second season. or a third or whatever. I just think that's such a knee jerk reaction, but
that's the streaming world, unfortunately.
Well, and I think Star Wars in general, like Lucasfilm needs to stop announcing stuff before it's like set in stone.
I will. I mean, that's
like,
another.
Let's announce 5 movies. You know what I mean? And like we haven't even made one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in the last few years. You know what I mean? Like, calm down, guys.
I really hope those days are done. I really hope those days are done since they got Bob Paycheck out of the CEO spot at Disney. Because that was corporate pressure to be like, look at all this great stuff. Please sign up for our streaming service.
Yeah.
They've purposely been holding back projects and kind of shelved them and reworked them. And now they come out when they're ready, not because, well, content, got to feed the beast.
Yeah.
So,
you know what I don't like though is kind of back to what John was saying about the Acolyte, right? There used to be a time where maybe a first season didn't nail it, right? Or a first movie didn't nail it. But you know what? We're going to take that into consideration. And we're going to tweak things a little bit, and we're going to write it better, and we're going to come back stronger and try it with a season 2. Like, since when do you just give up after one season? You know what I mean?
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
Like choke back the budget a little bit. Like you're spending, over a movie's budget on this show. Figure out a way to bring the budget down a little bit and write it better. Not saying it was written bad, but I'm just saying like. There was things that didn't, probably play out how any of us would have done it. You know what I mean? Not saying I could write it any better than them. I'm just saying like when you're watching the show, you're like, maybe I wouldn't have done that, And I can see some of the people's criticisms, you know what I mean? But I just think giving up after one season is ridiculous.
No, I completely agree because you don't know. I mean, you need to let it breathe and let it find its legs. And like, what, again, like, what if we were going to get the Plagueis story and some amazing new canonical stuff where the Force is concerned and, kind of add to that legacy. Like, and now we're not because and AJ, I know you said, oh, that's, the reality of streaming. I don't think so. Yeah. And Joseph Friday says, yeah, bean counters. That's your problem. Yeah. I mean, I get it, but I think in this case, they were looking at a bunch of like pieces of shit online that were claiming the show's woke, and they were like, "Oh, we're not going to do any more of this." Like, I think it was a knee jerk reaction that someone made. It was not a good decision.
Now, I'll say that there is a shorter leash on shows these days on streaming, for a very valid business reason. Back when shows were on television, but back then, like the way the business model worked was a production company would make the show and then they would sell it to the network. And that's how the studio got its money back because they were being paid by the network to get that show. So now that the streamers are both the studio and the network, that revenue stream is broken. And the other reason that shows got such a long leash a lot of times was because once, especially sitcoms, for example, when I think the count was like 100 episodes or something, then it could be sold into syndication and you get money on all the reruns and stuff that all the local channels get. And that's also not something that happens on streaming. So nowadays, like if you don't have a smash hit on your hands, you just spent, like, Sherrick, to your point, $250 million for that season of The Acolyte. So you drop $250 million and lose your ass on it. You're not going to drop another $250 million thinking that it's going to turn itself around. Like that's the definition of insanity. Is doing the same thing again and hoping for a better result.
I call bullshit based on exactly what you just said. How do they know they lost their ass on it? There wasn't like some mass exodus of like 250,000 people that said, I'm canceling Disney Plus because of The Acolyte. It didn't happen.
But there also wasn't a mass, there wasn't a mass influx either of going, oh my God, The Acolyte, I've got to sign up.
Well, okay, but wait a minute. How could there be? They don't have the damn service. How are they going to see the show?
Oh, there's plenty of buzz. And did they do, I forget if they did it for The Acolyte, but for other shows, they've put like the premiere on like YouTube or something, or ABC. ABC. Yeah, I know. I think Kenobi got its first episode or two on ABC, and they're like, "You want to see the rest?
Andor.
Got to sign up."
But
Or Andor. Sorry.
The unfortunate thing is, I think the biggest reason why I don't think we're going to get a season 2 of The Acolyte is because we probably won't ever get a Solo 2. And that movie actually was in a theater and made some of that money back, right? But The Acolyte, I mean, it's on TV and they're not selling tickets, right? There's people watching this that already pay for Disney Plus. And the people that are there are going to stick around for the other Star Wars stuff or the other Marvel stuff. But like, I loved Solo. I want a Solo 2. Probably never going to get it. You know what I mean? Because it didn't make $1 billion. Mm-hmm. So, and The Acolyte didn't, and I guess in their mind, it didn't make them $1 because the people that were already subscribed are the people that watched it. They probably didn't gain any other subscribers.
I'd be curious to know the way the ratings went, if it declined over the season, because that's a horrible thing when you get like this spike at the beginning and then everybody just drops off and doesn't even see the show all the way through.
I think that's how it went too.
I do too. I do too. But I mean, I get that. I just think that it was a knee-jerk reaction. I mean, it was the first. I mean, because we've seen backlash to shows, to all of the shows. I mean, it's on some level, and yet you don't see them just like, oh my god, we're canceling. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, we'll get back to the Skeleton Crew in a minute, but I mean, and to your point though, Sherrick, I think someday we are going to get a Solo 2. I really do. Because
what? Make it for Disney Plus. If you're not going to put it in the theater, make it for Disney Plus.
Yeah,
maybe exactly. That's the Lando season.
If we ever get that, yeah,
if we ever get that,
yeah. Well, I mean, here's the reason why I think it's going to happen, because if you look at the time, like how these movies, how it goes ever since the prequels, kind of let's call it the return of Star Wars in 1999. Movie's announced, people are like, "Oh, I'm so excited." Movie comes out, "Oh, it sucks." A few years later, "Oh, I'm warming up to it." A few years later, "Oh, it's great, it's classic." And so we're what, 6 years removed from Solo, and people are more and more grounds. "Oh man, that's such a good movie." We've had so on our show. I mean, we've had a bunch of people. "Man, I didn't go to see it in the theaters because I was pissed off about about The Last Jedi. Now I wish I would have, because I actually really like it now." So, sorry to use I'm making fun of people voice. I didn't mean to do that, but yeah. So I just think that it's kind of gaining in popularity, and people love nostalgia. And so as the movie ages and, people appreciate it more and more, and then it's just ripe for the taking to say, "Oh, guess what we're doing?" I mean, look at Top Gun Maverick. Like, I mean, that was, 30 years or something, or close to that. Like later, this 25, whatever the hell it is, years later. Yeah, something like that. It's like, dude, they come out with a sequel and everybody loses their goddamn minds because they're like, "Oh, Top Gun, dude."
Beetlejuice.
So, yeah, Beetlejuice. I mean, there's so many examples of it. So, and I think, again, Solo is ripe for the taking. So I think it'll happen, but
I wouldn't worry so much about the Darth Plagueis storyline though, John, because the Kenobi. Sorry, JT. The Kenobi show exists because the movie got scrapped because Solo didn't perform well. So no good idea is completely thrown out. It just comes back in a different form sometime down the road.
Yeah.
Well, Manny Jacinto already had an interview where he said there was a lot of plans for Plagueis in season 2, maybe even season 3 if they did it. But he said, maybe I shouldn't say anything in case we come back. Like, that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
So
right.
I think there's still talks. Like, can we make this happen and make it work? I don't think they've completely thrown it out the window, or at least bring some of the characters back into other stuff. Maybe not Acolyte season 2, but maybe a different show.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, and we talked about it, and we'll get back to Skeleton Crew after this, but I mean, you find after years and years and years of people wanting Plagueis, you got him, and then canceled. You can't put Plagueis out there and go, that's all you get is him being a creeper in a cave for like 4 seconds. Like that's you can't. Yeah, you can't do it.
That shows a problem with the show, though. That the most interesting thing that people want followed up on is the 4-second clip and not the 8-episode arc of all the characters that we were introduced to.
Okay, but what if the whole crux of the show was actually Plagueis, and the first season was just setting up. That's why it's called the Acolyte. I mean, what if that's the case? We don't know. So,
well, then they did a bad job. Honestly, dude, it just comes down to that, man. If it was a better show, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
I disagree, but okay. Anyways,
but look, the other thing is to pull it back to Skeleton Crew. We've got 2 episodes that we've seen so far, and we've got a whole lot of the usual Disney Plus streaming problems with Star Wars, where we got a 48-minute episode, okay, and then a 32-minute episode, and I don't care. And 2 episodes into the Acolyte, I watched and I was like, all right, I'll keep watching it. It's Star Wars. Let's see where this goes. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm excited for the next chapter. It's like, all right, I don't know. Maybe this will improve and grow on me. So just the way that this show is hitting its marks, the way that other shows, and insert your least favorite Disney Plus show here, didn't, kind of speaks to the fact that it's not the fact that Star Wars is tired as a franchise. I think there's just different qualities of Star Wars. And this one seems to be hitting a lot more of those for a much broader range of people. Would you?
And here's
the
thing.
Yeah.
Just as you can have different writers of different quality, you can also have directors and writers that know how to manage those funds better when they're making a product, right? So maybe the Skeleton Crew had the same budget as the Acolyte, but everybody running Skeleton Crew knows how to put that money on the screen better than the people that did the Acolyte.
That was one of the head scratchers. Was Acolyte was every bit as expensive, if not more, and yet looked cheaper, and no one could really figure out where that money went.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was in the quality of the sets or the costumes or anything. I think it was just how it was shot. It might just be down to cinematography.
I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're wrong about the runtime of these episodes for Skeleton Crew. The first episode was actually 27 minutes, and the second episode was 11. No, I'm not. I'm 100% right, because there was 22 minutes of fucking credits in the first episode and 21 minutes in the second one. I will die on that hill. Why do they need so many effing credits? Like, I literally, when I was down here,
I want to know who the director of photography was in Cantonese.
Dude, isn't it dumb?
I want to know how the credits are just as long in a 3-hour movie as they are in a 25-minute episode.
I'm telling you, dude, it's the weirdest thing. Like, I was literally sitting in my recliner watching the first episode, and I clicked it, and it said, okay, you've got 16 minutes left. And I went, okay, that means this will be over in 9 minutes at 7:15. And damn, if I didn't look up when it hit the credits and it was 7:15, I was like, nailed it. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yep.
But so
do you guys think that they filmed, like, let's say the Skeleton Crew's 8 episodes, I think. Do you think they filmed this like one long movie? And then they say, okay, now I know they have different directors, so it's not exactly like that. But let's say it's like, okay, we need to find the best place to cut this to make a good episode. And that's why we get these crazy different runtimes. Like, you know, if you watch, let's say, Supernatural, right? Every episode is the same length. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just using an example, right? But every episode of Star Wars show is different times. And it's
That's
like, I feel like they're like, okay, we made
a TV show. It's got to fit into this block, and you got to have time for commercials and credits, and But on streaming, who cares? Just make it whatever length you want.
Yeah, we need 8 episodes, so cut it where you think it works the best.
Well,
Yeah,
and that's a little difference too. Like, I feel like the Acolyte didn't really do that. I feel like the Acolyte just stopped and then you started with the next episode. Where so far these two, even though they're same problem, it's stupid short on the second episode. It felt like a good place for that chapter to
It was
end.
perfect. Yep, perfect spot.
Yeah. I would have to guess, Sherrick, that they film them at separate times, just because if how do you film it in one chunk and like you film a scene and then go, okay, director number 2, come in and direct.
No,
this
that's what
part.
I said. When I said that, I said, I mean, they got to do it separate because they're different directors.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, I think they, for the most part, at least this show has the same writers for every episode. I think. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's John Watts and his partner that are writing every episode. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
So they might set in there the spot where each director has to, call cut, like that's the episode. You know what I mean? Like they decide where the episodes end, and it just works out that, oh, this one's 48 minutes. Oh, this one's 25 minutes. The next one might be, it probably won't be, but an hour and 5. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just crazy how it works out. I'm like, it's weird. It's not what we're used to. Well, I mean, we're used to it with Star Wars, but we're not used to it from past TV watching.
Yeah. I think the one thing I will say is that I prefer the longer form episodes.
Sure.
I kind of feel like, like the first episode is right in a good sweet spot, about, all joking aside, like the runtime says, 49 minutes. So it's a little over 40 minutes. I think that's kind of perfect because, in terms of the watchability of it. So I hope this show gets more closer to that because, I'll use a couple of HBO shows as an example. Love The Sopranos, love it. But sometimes you don't have a full hour to sit down and watch an episode. But then there's Entourage, another show that I absolutely love. But those shows are like 22 minutes, 23 minutes. It's like, damn, this like feels like it's kind of rushed. Like I kind of want more. So I feel like 40 minutes like falls right in that sweet spot.
Mm-hmm. That's the typical length that a 1 hour TV show is.
Yeah. Yeah. So
you know what's crazy though is when you think about episode 2, right? To me, it was paced right. To me, it told the story it needed to tell in that time, and it ended at a perfect spot. So what do you do at that point? Do you throw a bunch of filler crap in there to drag it out to 40 minutes and you're just throwing shit in there that makes no sense? Or are you like, you know what? This episode was perfect. It hit everything we wanted to hit. It didn't feel rushed. It ended in a good spot. It's gold. You know what I mean? Like we don't want to throw anything more in there just to drag it out another 10 minutes. So that's where it kind of gets like that fine line of, are we just throwing stuff in there to drag it out, or are we cutting it at a good point because it did what it needed to do?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I think they write a bunch and then they cut what kind of seems superfluous as you get to it, to your point, to make it more concise, so you don't have filler and you're not kind of wasting time. So, I have a feeling that the rest of these episodes are going to be kind of on the shorter side because this feels like a show that works better at a quicker pace. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like something like Andor that had longer episodes because it's such a character driven, dialogue driven thing. It's not set up to be necessarily like an action type of a show. So I think in those situations, it works well to have a longer runtime. But I think in something like Skeleton Crew, because you do have kids as your main characters, so you're going to draw in kids. They have a shorter attention span, so I think this show's going to have the shorter runtime. But I think that'll work to its benefit because you're going to be able to pack more action into it, and it's just going to boom, 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 hit all the high spots and everything, and kind of keep it. I don't want to say at a frenetic pace in terms of the energy, but just always kind of going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that AJ? Does that make sense? Like, am I making sense here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a show about kids and pirates having an adventure in space. You don't need to take these like long pauses where it's a whole hour just to dig into the backstory of Fern, you know?
Yeah.
We just need to know enough about their archetypes to understand the decisions they're going to make along the way, and then let's see where it goes. I don't want anything more in depth than that. And like you said, it's got kids at the focus, and I think kids are kind of the focus of the audience as well. But it's still written well enough that, you know, we're three middle-aged guys all talking about how much we like the show so far. So I think it's
right.
I think he's doing a good job at all those things. The thing that occurred to me, as we were talking about like not getting second seasons and whatnot, knowing that this show was already delayed a year, for various reasons, like filming was done a long time ago. Like they announced this and then there was like 2 years before it came out. Right. In fact, yeah, because we saw the first announcement dimensions of this at Celebration 22.
Yeah,
in Anaheim.
Mm-hmm.
So, and knowing that these are child actors, by the time they get cameras rolling on a second season, if or when they get the green light, do you think it's even plausible? Because the kids this age, they're going to be like 3 years older at that point. It's not going to be. They're going to write a time jump in. It's not going to be plausible.
Look how long we've gotten in between Stranger Things seasons. I mean, it's not. We don't get a season every year. You know, it's like 2 years and then we get a new season. You know what I mean?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not where they can just be like, okay, it ended here and season 2 starts tomorrow. You know what I mean? It might be like 2 years later. You know,
that's exactly what I was just going to say. They could write the time break into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Miranda, by the way, Miranda says, I don't mind the shorter episodes, but have more than 8 episodes then. I think that's a perfect comment, Miranda. I'm with that. I think what kind of pisses me off is when you get these, 22-minute episodes or something, but then, like you said, there's only 8. Like, well, what the F?
Like, Andor gets like what, 10?
Yeah, Andor was 10. Well,
and they were more like hour. Most of the Andor's episodes were the 45 minute. Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I liked Obi-Wan
though, Andor, what it didn't have was a shit ton of aliens where you got costumes and makeup. And that's the thing, is I think we get shorter episodes because the budget for these shows are crazy. To use Supernatural as an example, again, 22 episodes a season, hour-long episode, right, with commercials. But the budget was probably next to nothing compared to the Star Wars show. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when you work it all out, 10 episodes or less is probably all they can afford to make with that budget. Unfortunately, probably you guys just as much as me. I'd love these to be 12 to 15 at least, but it's never going to happen. You know what I mean? Just because the budget is crazy.
Yeah. Now I wonder about the episode count. How do you feel about the episode count? Because like we said, we talked about a mystery, for lack of a better term. Obviously the story is the kids getting back home, but there's the mystery of their home and what's that all about with them having the barrier and everything. Acolyte, I feel like one of the problems was it couldn't sustain its mystery over 8 episodes. Like the mystery was solved as an audience member early on and wasn't compelling enough to sustain that runtime. Do you feel like Skeleton Crew has the legs, for lack of a better term, to stretch this out and remain compelling? Or is it going to be like, okay, you're padding this out, just get the kids home already, let's call this a day?
I think it does, because I think you've got 2 separate stories going on. Like, as I said, Billy Judd checking in says, hey guys, good to see you, Billy. Thanks for checking out the show. Good to see you again. I think there's multiple stories there, so I think they can keep it going. Because on the one hand, there's the, hey, let's get them home. But as you mentioned, we got to figure out what the hell Addon is. And as I said, I think there's something bigger that could come out of this.
Yeah, so, I actually think you have about 3 or 4 stories in this show. Like, you've got the mystery of their home world. You got trying to get the kids home. You got Jod's true identity, right?
True. Mm-hmm.
And then you have Jod versus the pirates. Or, well, actually, all of them and him and the kids versus the pirates. So, to me, there's like for 8 episodes, they've got plenty of story to work with. Where I don't know. I feel like the Acolyte had a great story. They just they didn't make it mystery enough. Like when we first heard about the show, we're like, oh, this is going to be crazy, right? We're going to have this mystery and it's going to be all about Sith. And it just really didn't turn out that way at all.
Mhm.
Which really, they had never really given us a whole bunch of the story of this show. They've just given us comparisons of what the show is about or is like.
Yeah.
So the story is kind of a mystery to us in general. You know what I mean? So that's what I like about it.
I think it's the way a lot of shows get ruined for fans is that they kind of presuppose, right? Like the trailers come out and they're like, in their head, they write their own story. They think they know where the show is going to go. And when they don't get what they were expecting, that's when, the pitchforks come out and everything.
Yeah.
Do you think the simplicity of the marketing on this one is working in its favor because we didn't really have a lot to go on?
I would say so.
I think so.
It's interesting because you say simplicity. I think, would you consider this more simplistic than the Acolyte? Because the Acolyte, we're like, what the hell is this about? Whereas this one, they're like, it's Goonies in space. They kind of gave you an idea right off the rip, So
keep it simple.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah.
I think the marketing, honestly, it's been simple, but I think the marketing behind this has been pretty cool. Did you guys see the trailer where they did like an 80s throwback gritty, like snowy trailer where it was all like, check these kids out on this adventure. And it was like just great. Like they got creative with a trailer, you know what I mean? And like made it cool. Like, oh, it's this 80s kids adventure. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of stuff I like. Like you should look it up. It's short. It's only like 30 seconds, but it was different. You know what I mean? And it kind of takes you back to when you're like, oh, I want to see that. And it made me feel like I was a kid, in the early 80s watching this commercial for this new kids show, like I thought it was pretty cool. It was just different. But I do like when I think of simplicity, I think they're not really giving us a whole lot of the story in the trailers. They're just showing us a bunch of stuff that looks cool, but they didn't give away too much of the story. They showed us what we needed to compare it to the shows they compared it to, the movies they compared it to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, by the way, Nick Hall chiming in, he says, Acolyte suffered from trying to set up their more intriguing elements. Yeah, I could see that. One thing I will say about this show, I think, you talk about the marketing, AJ, and I think, like I just said, they kind of blatantly kind of made this out to be like the 80s-ish kid-centric-ish, I suppose, type of show. But I think what they've done the best so far is to really walk that tightrope. Because the thing that struck me as I was watching it was like, if I'm like a 10-year-old kid, I'm loving this. Mm-hmm. But I'm a 48-year-old man, I'm loving it. Like, and I think Sherrick, you and I were texting about it, and I think you had said, it's a situation where you kind of like it's a throwback to Star Wars when it really makes you feel like a kid again. Which is some of the most fun aspects of the original trilogy and the prequels, is that you kind of had you really had that awesome balancing act, and I think this show is doing it very, very well so far.
Well, I like the mixture. Like when I was watching Wim as a child, it seems as though his mom has passed or something, but he's basically a single parent kid, a latchkey kid where he's at home, and his dad's off working and he doesn't have that parent around all the time. Right. Well, yeah. And so you live in fantasy, right? Like He's playing with his figures. He's thinking about what's out there. Like, I want an adventure, everything, because he's lacking some things at home. And so, like, I related to that, right? And I can see a little kid with a single parent living the same way, reacting to that and being like, oh, that's me. And then they introduce Jod as the adult you want to be, right? Like, that's the guy I want to be when I get older. You know what I mean? So now you're seeing me as a kid and then what I want to be as an adult. And I think that's the great mixture. And because we've lived in this Star Wars fantasy since we were kids, like, we still look at Jod like, that's who I want to be right now as an adult. Like, that's who I want to be. You know what I mean? But I remember being that kid playing with his Star Wars figures. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I like about the show is, yes, it's for kids, but there's enough in there for us adults. You got the kids that look to the adult because that's what they want to be when they grow up. And then you have the adults that look at the kid that we used to be. And so you get a nice balancing act there. And that's what I like about it.
I like it. Well, we're at an hour and a half, so why don't we close up shop? But before we go, Sherrick, first of all, thank you for jumping on. We'll put you in the green room after we get these last thoughts, and we'll put you in the green room, and we'll talk to you off air a minute before we jump. But real quick, final thoughts on the show. I will say myself, I'm optimistic, and I'm hoping that it doesn't kind of peter out. For a lot of people, they were kind of pumped up about the first couple episodes of The Acolyte, and then a lot of them changed their mind. So I'm hoping that this doesn't do the same. But I like the concept. I really like the feel of the show. I hope that doesn't change. So I'm very pleasantly surprised with it. I think it's a great new addition to the Star Wars canon. AJ, you said it earlier. They don't have anything else like this, and I think it's great. I think it's super interesting, and I'm just very excited to watch the rest of it. I am with Miranda. I wish there were more than 8 episodes. But I'll take what I can get. I think it's great. I'm excited, and I can't wait to see what else they're going to do. So what about you, AJ?
I totally agree. The last couple of I think the last Disney Plus show for Star Wars that I truly enjoyed and was like, oh my God, why did the credits have to roll? I got to see more. I think was Andor. I like the various shows to different degrees, but especially Acolyte is just completely fell off where like it was work for the show that I had to watch the next episode. This is, I really was worried because like you said, we always come at these things with trepidation and like, all right, we're going to judge this before we get on board with it. And I was afraid, I'm always afraid of losing that like childlike thing where you just take what you're given and say, yes, that is what it is. I don't get to decide if that's my Star Wars or not.
Yeah.
So it's so refreshing to have this show come along. And even after only 2 episodes, have it just be like, I'm on board for the ride. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to decide if I like it. I just know that from the minute that opening scene with the pirates boarding the ship started, I was having a good time. And that's such a breath of fresh air for this franchise and such a tonal shift for a lot of the stuff that we've gotten recently. So I can't wait to see what comes up. And I just wish there was more of it. But for the next 6 weeks, I think we're going to be having a really good time.
Totally agree. Sherrick, final thoughts, man.
I'm just hoping that it takes what it laid out in the first 2 episodes and just keeps building from there and like continues where I'm feeling right now, where I'm excited to see it every week. I just want it to stay that way. I don't want, like you said, like Adam said, to get to where it's a chore to get through it. You know what I mean? And like, you're hoping for it to grab you and it don't. Like, I hope it just stays where it is right now and just keeps building from there. And it's already got me. So just keep me and land the plane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just tell a good story and open like you said, this is the only thing like it so far, outside of, maybe some of the animation with kids related stuff in it. But that's, you said something when we were texting, right? Like you heard it was mainly pointed at kids, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, I mean, we watch Rebels and we watch Clone Wars. You know what I mean? Like those are cartoons.
Mhm.
So like a show that's live action can be for kids, but can have enough adult themes in it or enough adult stuff in it to keep us wanting to see more every week. And that's just what I want from it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, once again, man, he is Matt Sherrick, a very good friend of mine. Thanks again for coming on, dude. We appreciate it. Always great insight. And as I said, we'll throw you in the green room here real quick. We'll close up and then we'll talk to you in a minute.
Thanks again, guys. It was great.
Thanks, bro.
Yep. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you. Yep.
So there goes Sherrick. So many thanks to him for coming on. Always, again, as I said, always good insight. So, so fun show, dude. I'm excited. If for no other reason than I was skeptical and now I'm not skeptical. So they've turned me into a Skeleton Crew believer. So I'm and as you know, I'm always a big fan of new properties that can open up, potential other areas and stories and stuff like that, and kind of expand the lore without being cheesy. So, all right. So before we jump out here, as always, we have to give the rundown of the upcoming Virtual Cantina Network schedule. So this week, obviously, this is December 2nd through the 8th. Blow this up here so I can actually read this properly. So obviously, the first couple shows are already done. But so what we have, obviously, we've got us tonight, and then tomorrow night, Thursday, December 5th, we have the VCN watch along of Skeleton Crew episodes 1 and 2 with Marty Matulis and Nick Bensamin. They work on the show, so that'll be really, really cool. That is at 9:30 p.m. Eastern or 6:30 p.m. Pacific. On Friday, December 6th, we have Skeleton Crew After Show episodes 1 and 2. That will air at 3 a.m. Eastern or midnight Pacific. On Saturday, December 7th, we have the VCN Star Wars Celebration Japan News Desk. Let's talk Star Wars Celebration. I love that we're finally getting that back because that means we're getting close to a celebration. That is going to be, again, Saturday, December 7th at 12 p.m. Eastern or 9 a.m. Pacific. And on Sunday, December 8th, the Unifying Force has a new episode coming out. It will be at 11 a.m. Eastern or 8 a.m. Pacific. So check out those fine shows. Highly recommend those. So you actually had something that you wanted to talk about here real quick, AJ.
Yeah, as evidenced by our hour and 37-minute podcast, it's supposed to be like 90 or less usually. We got a lot more thoughts to share than we can cram into a bi-weekly podcast. So just like all the other great shows out there, I have set up a Discord server for us. So it is completely brand new. You can get in on the ground floor. There's no cost. You don't have to do anything but just go to discord.nerfherdercouncil.com and it'll take you right to it. And you can join our Discord server. We've got the basic channel set up. We'll get more as we go on, but let's go on there. Let's talk some Star Wars. Let's talk video games. Let's talk Marvel. Anything that comes up on the show or doesn't, if you want to talk about it, we'll be on there and we'll be sharing our thoughts too between shows. So that way we can keep the conversation rolling and maybe get some, new show ideas out of it too. So join us on there. Let's have a good time and continue growing the community.
Completely agree. And one thing you could talk about is Lego, because I would just real quick before we sign off here, I'm very excited because I found on sale the Lego Droideka. So I have the destroyer to build and I'm waiting for it. So, there it is. Oh man. I can't wait, dude. There we go. More awesome content for our audio viewers. As you show off your Lego. So there we go. But
I'm going to show off one literally little thing too. My buddy Eric got me the Star Wars Lego Advent calendar. So I've been opening awesome. Little Lego Star Wars every day. It's awesome.
That's very cool. All right, well, on that note, we'll close up shop. Thank you guys once again for checking out another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. As always, we are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. I actually have a recommendation for an audiobook you might want to check out if you are a music fan, specifically a Van Halen fan. Alex Van Halen recently released his autobiography. It's titled Brothers. And the audiobook version is out there. It's only about 6.5 hours long. It's not crazy long. But Alex reads it himself. And it is unbelievably personal to hear him telling stories about Edward and the band and just, how close they were. It's an excellent listen if you're into that sort of thing, or especially if you're a Van Halen fan. So if you don't have an Audible account, you can get a book for free just by signing up. Again, it is audibletrial.com/NHC. So check that out. If you want to get some customizable Nerf Herder Council swag, go to shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. If you would like virtual Cantina Network swag, just go to tpublic.com/user/virtual-cantina. We have to thank the sponsor of the virtual Cantina Network, Hyperspace Props. So thanks to them for sponsoring the network and the shows that are on the network. And guys, if you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell so that you are notified every time we go live. So we will be right back here. Let me check my dates, because I know our dates got kind of screwed up. We had an off week, and then everything's kind of getting...
It's going to be on the 18th.
That's right. Okay, so it's after that it's getting jacked up. Okay. So yeah, we will be right back here on Wednesday, December 18th. Thank you, AJ, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with our annual Christmas show. And we're still trying to decide what we want to do. We've got a couple movies in mind that we want to talk about. And we'll figure it out, but it's going to be our annual Christmas show, so tune in for that. And we'll have some fun. So AJ, always great to see you, man. Thanks for everything. One more time, thank you very much to Matt Sherrick, and we'll see you on Wednesday, December 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as always, till next time, guys, see ya.
This bucket of bolts is never gonna get us past that blockade.
This bucket's got a few surprises left in her. Plus, me and Chewie are on it. Ain't that right, Chewie?
Hell yeah, you my Nerf herder.
You my Nerf herder.